Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Ishant Fauzdar from Christ Deemed to be University, and today I am presenting my paper for Media Meet 2020 titled Assault on Journalism, a case study of Kashmir with special emphasis on UAPA coupled with AFSPA. So, in the beginning, at the onset, it is important to understand the aim of this paper or what this paper is about. And this paper is about seeing Kashmir through a different lens. So Kashmir has always been in news for terrorism, for insurgency, and this terrorism, this Islamic fundamentalism, can be traced back to 1990, after the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits, and which led to the implementation of AFSPA in the Jammu and Kashmir state, the then state. AFSPA is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which gives the army special powers, an extra dimension of protection to fight terrorism. And hence, a war against terrorism was waged in Kashmir. However, what the paper is interested in is to analyze the hit journalism took in Kashmir owing to this war on terrorism, and following which UAPA, that is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which has been in India since 1967 and has gone through successive amendments. The most controversial one being the 2019 amendment. Uh, the paper wants to and tries to analyze the impact of UAPA and AFSPA on journalists in Jammu and Kashmir, and how UAPA that works in the entire country works differently in a region, in a state, in a union territory now, which has AFSPA implemented in it. So why Kashmir? So there can be many answers to this question. First of all, Kashmir is a disputed region. And because Kashmir is a disputed region, there are more unheard voices and more unseen ground reality in Kashmir. And it is the foremost job of journalists and journalism to give voice to the voiceless. Hence, it becomes paramount to analyze the condition of journalism in a state which needs it the most, which needs it the most. And further, Kashmir is one of the few regions where UAP and AFPA both operate simultaneously. Another example can be the northeastern states. Uh, then we come to the review of literature. It's astonishing to note that there is not one single book which has been dedicatedly written to analyze the condition and emergence of media in Kashmir or journalism in Kashmir. However, Prithvi and Chaku's A Social and Political History of Jammu and Kashmir, S.K. Ganju's Kashmir History and Politics, and Ramchandra Guha's India After Gandhi, these books can help understand the social and political history of Jammu and Kashmir and how the politics plays out in the state, in the then state. A.G. Nurani's Article 370, a constitutional history, gives us a firm legal background to the state, which is important to understand, which is important in order to understand the dynamics in which AFSPA and UAPA, which are both federal laws, work in Kashmir. The articles by Wire, Scroll, Al Jazeera, and Amnesty International chalk out specific atrocities on journalists in Jammu and Kashmir, foremostly owing to UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And reports from JKCC and United Nations are few reports which actually highlight the atrocities on journalists because of AFSPA. AFSPA has always been associated with common public and has never been associated with journalists in particular. So these are the three or four few reports which actually highlight the atrocities on journalists due to AFSPA. The research gap being that there is no article, no dedicated book, or no research material which dedicatedly analyzes the use of UAPA and AFSPA, the how UAPA works in presence of AFSPA in Jammu and Kashmir, in Kashmir, and how the dynamic plays out. The methodology, so first of all, this paper has tried to qualitatively analyze the reports on atrocities on journalists under AFSPA. So how has AFSPA uh, wreaked violence or have made atrocities on journalists in Jammu and Kashmir, in Kashmir? Then we come to then there are two quantitative analysis of NCRB data. The first one to explore the use of UAPA following 2014 and the general use of UAPA in India and in Kashmir. Uh, it also it is also the NCRB data has also been used to analyze to find out the conviction and the pendency rate of UAPA, which I'll be explaining in the further slide. Uh, then there's a qualitative analysis of UAPA's use, how UAPA has affected journalism in Kashmir before 2019 and after 2019. And finally, there's a joint analysis. Well, so first we come to the qualitative analysis of AFSPA, and the killing of Laza Kaul, the director of Doordarshan, can be seen as the tipping point after which AFSPA was implemented in Jammu and Kashmir. Well, AFSPA has been used in many ways, not only to wreak violence directly, but also to suppress freedom of expression through blockade. So, following Burhan Wani's assassination, three Kashmiri newspapers, Greater Kashmir, Kashmir Times, and Rising Kashmir, were raided and they were not allowed to publish for 3 days. Uh, AFSPA also gives immunity to the personnel, and no, there can be no legal proceeding. They cannot be held under trial unless the central government wants. So, for example, there's a guy called Sheikh, editor of Rahnumai Kashmir, and he was killed, and his family alleged that the armed forces, along with a militant group, killed him. But then there was no investigation because AFSPA. Uh, AFSPA makes the protest very violent because AFSPA gives the army free pass to fire and to fire on anyone based on suspicion and arrest without warrant. So it makes protest very violent, and when the protests become violent, it is impossible to do journalism. I'll give an example. Muzammil Matto of Kashmir Reader and Zuhaib Makbul, they were working on an online portal and were hit with pellets while covering a protest because it became very violent. And there are many journalists who were hurt by pellets and even badly injured. Finally, if I sum up AFSPA and AFSPA's atrocities, 21 journalists have lost their lives in targeted killings or because they were caught in crossfire since 1990 owing to AFSPA. UAPA, when we come to UAPA, this is the quantitative analysis of the use of UAPA. It is interesting to note that UAPA did not have a separate column in the NCRB crime report before 2014. So NCRB comes out with a crime report every year, and UAPA did not have a separate head of its own before 2014 under SSL crimes. But then after 2014, it was given a special, a separate head of its own, and it blasted. The use of UAPA blasted after 2014. In 2014, it was 976. It went on to 922 in 2016, and in 2018, it went on to 1182. Jammu and Kashmir stands second in the list of states where UAPA has been used the most. First is Manipur, and it can be seen how the cases exploded in Jammu and Kashmir. In 2018, it went on to 245. In 2014, it was 45 only. Uh, then we come to the conviction rate and the pendency rate under UAPA. So conviction rate, it can be easily understood that what's the percentage of alleged people who are charged under UAPA who are found guilty in the court of law. So the conviction rate under UAPA has been incredibly low, 27% in 2014, 14% in 2015. That is only 14% of the total cases which were tried in court were found guilty, and the rest were acquitted. They were not found guilty. And the pendency rate is a number, actually a percentage of the cases which are left pending in a particular year. For example, in 2014, 97% of the cases under UAPA were left pending. They did not reach the court. In 2017 and in 2018, it is 93.4%. That is 93.4% charged under UAPA do not even reach the court. Then we come to the qualitative analysis of UAPA. So UAPA has been used in many ways to suppress journalists. For example, the tipping point is Burhan Wani's assassination, and after Burhan Wani's assassination, to suppress freedom of speech, a journalist called Asif Sultan was picked up in the middle of the night, informally arrested, and then charged with UAPA because he wrote a column named Rise of Burhan. The photojournalist Kamran Yusuf was uh, charged under UAPA after he got bail of his initial charges to prevent him from getting bail, because if you charge someone with UAPA, getting bail is extremely difficult under Section 43D5 of the Act. And further, after 2019, the abrogation of Article 370 or defunctionalization of 370, UAPA was again used to curb freedom of expression. Gohar Gilani was slapped with UAPA and he was avoided, he was not allowed to fly, and he's a very renowned journalist. Masrat Zahra is a very recent case. She was charged under UAPA Section 13 for unlawful activity, and this was the picture she was charged with. It is a 18-month-old picture on social media. So this was the picture she was charged with, and this is a protest which is going on. It can be seen that joint analysis of UAPA and AFSPA, I'll be discussing more on this, but it can be seen a single statement of Hamza, a journalist, which happened after 370. So she was returning after covering a protest, and there were army personnel waiting outside her house to check her. And this was a statement given by her. I felt as if I was carrying a deadly weapon instead of a camera. Muzmail Matto was beaten down in while covering a prayer in Kashmir. There were many atrocities. There were many cases of violence which were used under AFSPA, and UAPA worked in correspondence to AFSPA. So both work together. Major findings. So the major findings of the study found that UAPA is divided into three phases. The first phase is before 2014, when UAPA was just for namesake. After 2014, UAPA exploded, and after 2019, UAPA took its worst form. And it is worth noting that there was a lot of cry after 2019 amendment of UAPA, but the 2019 amendment of UAPA has not been used once by the government. And what has been used is the 2004 and the 2008 amendment. So we can say that after 2004 and 2008, UAPA became a gun which was filled, and the 2019 government just fired it. UAPA has been very ineffective. It first of all, it exploded after 2014, owing to the corresponding with the new government, NDA government, and because of the low conviction rate of UAPA, it can be seen that UAPA is not effective. It is not suppressing anything. It is only used as a harassing tool. So the pendency rate in UAPA has been very high, and so it can be understood in this way: 97% of the cases under UAPA are pending. So they do not reach court, but the accused has to spend years in jail, and the jail is not, and it is difficult getting bail under UAPA. So that becomes a completely harassing experience for the journalist or the anyone who is facing trial. Well, AFSPA made UAPA worse because first of all, a journalist is not protected under AFSPA. He can be physically assaulted, physically abused, and then UAPA took away from him his journalistic rights. The case of Irman Malik, Hamza are two prime examples. Kashmir's new media policy. So DIPR came out with the media policy 2020, and it is an archetype of what the media policy should not be. It provides for censorship on the basis of words which are very vague, such as anti-national. Kashmir needs media policies because journalists need an extra dimension of protection, just as the army gets an extra dimension of protection under AFSPA. Curtailment of media leads to isolation and not authority. And when media is not independent, it becomes a propaganda machine and nothing else. And propaganda machine is is an indicator of fascism and authoritarianism. And in India, we preserve democracy. Conclusion is Kashmir has always paved way. Has Kashmir was not a part of Mahabharata. During partition, there was no violence in Kashmir. And we need to understand that integration of a territory does not mean integration of a state. If we do not listen to the people of the Kashmir, that is a journalist, we cannot integrate them. And it is not difficult to understand why solving the media crisis can be a big step towards solving the Kashmir dispute. Journalists in Kashmir are not commended even for the Pulitzer, but it is important to understand that journalism in Kashmir is not dead. This came out after 370, after the blockades were released, and this can be seen that Kashmir journalism in Kashmir has been harassed, but it is not dead, and we need to work towards it. The further research is what the media reform should be. It is a completely different question, and it can be understood. It should be researched at what the media reform should be in Kashmir and whether they should be state specific, whether they should start from Kashmir. I believe they should start from Kashmir because Kashmir is the worst affected, and save Northeast. And it should be debated and discussed what the media reform should be. And we already know what it should not be in the form of Media 2020. Well, thank you so much, everyone.